Welcome to Galactic Grandmother, Heart to Heart. My name is April. My special guest today is Clint Ober. Clint is the leader in an international movement named Earthing. And earthing is a simple concept, but it's so important to us. We actually, when we touch Mother Earth, it grounds us. And I'm going to let Clint explain that to us. But there's been over 20 published research studies showing improvement and inflammation, which is the root cause of so many degenerative diseases, pain, sleep management, wound healing. The list goes on and on. And Clint has written a book entitled Earthing, the Most Important Health Discovery. He's also invented a lot of products which assist us to stay grounded when we're not able to get outside and put our feet on the earth, or if we don't live in a place where that's easy to do. There's also a movie out called the Earthing Movie, which you can watch for free on YouTube and other channels. So I'm so happy and thankful to have you on today, Clint. Welcome.
It's been an honor to be here and be able to visit with you and your followers.
If you wouldn't mind, for some people that aren't familiar with earthing, could you just kind of give us a background on how you got involved with this?
Here's a cowboy from Montana comes along and just ask a crazy question. And so I've spent 25 years working on it, and I've had a host of researchers from various universities and doctors and physicists and everybody, and they all say, how did we miss this? Best place to start, because it's a foreign subject to most people.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow, I spent 30 years in the communications industry, one of the original pioneers in the cable television industry, and especially in the rural areas of Montana and Pennsylvania and places like that. In that industry, we had to ground everything to earth, because when you have cable systems around, you have all the wire up in the air, and you have to ground it to earth in order to maintain electrical stability, but primarily to prevent lightning from traveling down the line, entering the home, and creating a fire inside the home.
Uh-huh.
But anyhow, that's my background. That's how I got started in this. What grounding is the earth has what we call a negative surface charge. And this electrical charge is composed of free electrons. And so that's why everything electrical in the world is grounded to the earth. So electrons can come up the ground rod and reduce charge in a home or in a electrical device. You have to have constant voltages in order for your lights to work. So grounding is about electrical stability and preventing fire. Free electrons are they're universal, they're everywhere. And it's like when you stand barefoot on the earth, then your body absorbs these electrons. But the most significant thing about grounding is it's to reduce and prevent charge. So if you're grounded as a human being, then you can't have any charge in your body. You can't have inflammation in your body. Now, that's a hard one for people to get their mind around.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, back in like the early 60s, 90% of the visits to a general practitioner were for infectious disease, childbirth, and acute injury. Today, 99% of all visits to a practitioner are for an inflammation-related health disorder. In 1960, we invented the polymers, and we started making plastic soles for our shoes. And the significance of that was now everybody could afford shoes, because before, leather shoes were expensive. But nobody realized that we were losing our ground or our electrical connection with the planet. For the first time, man has insulated himself completely from the surface of the earth. And so in 1960 started the rise of inflammation-related health disorders. And that's everything from autism to lupus to MS to cardiovascular disease to it's an endless amount of
Right.
it. About 100 named health disorders, diabetes being one of the primary, cardiovascular being secondary, and so on, and cancer, all of these things. So
Now, what about the athletes? It would certainly make sense with regards to inflammation, especially
yes,
coming off of a field after competitive game to do some
yes,
grounding. But there's coaches now that are having their players ground before and after, correct?
exactly. Yeah, we started that all many years ago up at Stanford and with the Stanford swim team of all things. And then it went to the runners. They would run 15, 20 minutes barefoot around the track on the grass. Then they put the shoes on and run like competitive. And then afterwards, they would take the shoes off and again run 15, 20 minutes around the track to get the inflammation out of the body
Wow.
from their.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of athletes, Aaron Rodgers and a bunch of those older guys that have been playing football they keep going, they keep going. Well, those guys have been grounded for 15, 20 years.
Wow.
The Tour de France, we've grounded the Tour de France team, for 8, 9 years in a row. And there's a reason why they do that is because they have more energy, they recover faster during sleep, they heal better up, they heal up faster from injuries of the day and so on. But yeah, we have a huge amount of athletes that are grounding themselves in one way or another. And professional athletes, many of the NFL players, yeah, every sport, there's grounding is important because it reduces pain, it
Right.
reduces inflammation, keeps them, they recover faster, easier, and better, and they get to stay in the game. Because if you get injured or whatever, and you don't recover, then you can't play.
Right.
The animals who live outdoors in nature, who
Mhm.
live grounded, they walk with all fours on the earth, they sleep on the earth or in burrows or whatever. Cancer rarely, if ever, exists in
Mhm.
nature unless somebody messes up their in living in their environment. You can
Right.
poison the pond and do certain things. Inflammation related health disorders do not exist in nature. On the other hand, all of the animals who lived indoors with their owners,
Mm.
they manifest, 50% of them die from cancer, just like their owners. They have all kinds of autoimmune and inflammation related health disorders. Take an
Wow.
animal outdoors, health disorders disappear. Take a human being, and that's what I spent the last 25 years doing was we would, first of all, it was an intuitive thing that came to me. I had retired when I was about 50, and at 54, I accidentally made an observation looking at somebody with shoes on and plastic shoes. But at that time, having 30-year background in grounding everything, I intuitively asked, wonder if there's a consequence of
Uh,
humans no longer being naturally grounded. And 25 years later, here I am still working on it. And so it's really, the first 10 years was 100% research. And then as we, in, around 210 or 209 back in there when we wrote the book, and people that were involved in our studies, they all wanted the devices that we grounded them with, because we would monitor them with all kinds of equipment, you know, um, uh, everything from MRIs to you name it, just so you could see what's going on in the body.
uh-huh.
But because the first thing that happened with humans when we started grounding people, if they had pain in their body, it would disappear in
Wow.
minutes.
In minutes?
Yeah, if you have arthritis in
Wow.
your hands or whatever, you go outdoors, sit down on the earth, put your bare feet on the earth, put your hands on the earth, and just count the minutes till the pain goes away. And that's everything in the body is electrical first,
Right.
chemical second. The real question that we tried to solve the first 10 years was we knew that we could ground a person to the earth just by getting them to put their feet on the earth, bury their feet in the sand at the ocean, just be on the earth. And the pain, it would reduce pain. So the question was, well, how does that happen? The medical community had no knowledge, no working hypothesis on how this worked. In fact, they had never heard of such a thing. And that's why someone like myself got involved, because I couldn't believe that nobody knew. I was the first person to ask, well, why does pain go away when you're grounded? And nobody knew. So along the way, I ran into a doctor, a cardiologist by the name of Stephen Sinatra. He's very popular back east. And I was telling him about the pain disappearing, and he said, well, Clint, he said, if you're reducing pain, he said, you need to be studying inflammation, because you can't have pain in your body unless you have inflammation first. He said, basically, most health disorders are inflammation related, meaning, which is a term that really wasn't in the English language in the early 2000s. It wasn't until 2004, until Ritger and the boys at Boston, Mass. Had published the studies on, they came out, and it was in Time magazine, the front page of Time magazine, showed the body on fire. And I said, you don't have, all of these health disorders. You don't have cardiovascular disease. You don't have cancer. You don't have, diabetes. You don't have any of these diseases. What you have is chronic inflammation building up in your body. And depending on your lifestyle and your genetics, it will manifest in some as heart disease, others, and maybe if they smoke or do certain things, or others like diabetes, it'll manifest more there. Because of maybe your food or lack of exercise, but it goes on and on. But anyhow, the studies, the bottom line was, you do not have these health disorders. What you have is chronic inflammation. The body is on fire. But nobody had the solution. What's causing the fire? Which is what we were working on. One day I was reading a bunch of research papers, and I came across an article that was talking about neutrophils, which is a white blood cell that if you have an injury or pathogen in your body, the immune system will send a neutrophil over to the area where the bacteria or whatever it is, and then it will find it and actually wrap itself around the pathogen and encapsulate it. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like a jelly cell almost. Anyhow, then it will release what they call reactive oxygen species, electrically charged. So when I read the word reactive, I said, okay, that's electrical term. So the immune system was actually releasing reactive oxygen molecules into the body and use them to rip electrons away from the pathogens and destroy them. So the immune system was functioning electrically. So then that was my first clue, was, okay, here's what's causing the problem. It's because if you're not grounded to the earth, this is sort of took us about a year or so to figure out, when you're grounded to the earth, the pain goes away. So the only thing that could be happening is the body was absorbing free electrons from the earth, maintaining a negative charge on the body, like it would in nature, like the animals. So you have a negative charge, and then this reduces and prevents excess reactive oxygen species from oxidizing adjacent cells. So if you have a pathogen and the neutrophil comes over and it encapsulates it and it oxidizes it with these radicals, and that's normal, but if there's any left over after the oxidative burst, then those reactive molecules are only going to, they're electrically charged, so they're within nanoseconds, they're going to attach and steal an electron from something in order to neutralize their state. So if that happens to be an adjacent cell that's healthy, and neutrophil comes over and latches on, or the reactive oxygens, the free radicals, let's say, steal an electron from a healthy cell, damages it. Then the immune system sends another neutrophil. It cleans up the problem, but it damages anything left over from it, damages a cell again. So it sets up a fire. It's a chain reaction.
Like a vicious circle, and that sounds like the technical explanation of inflammation.
Yeah, that's why they call it autoimmune disease. I mean,
Uh-huh.
the immune system is automatic, and it's so it's the immune system is doing its job. But what happened when we put shoes on, synthetic sole shoes, then we're no longer naturally grounded.
Yeah.
And so now our body doesn't have that excess reservoir of free electrons to reduce these radicals before they can damage normal, healthy cells. So if you have any pain in your body, any chronic pain, you have inflammation in your body. In nature, the way our bodies um, evolved over all this time is we were always naturally grounded. So
Right.
the body never had to, the immune system never had to worry about not having enough electrons. It's like breathing oxygen. You didn't have to worry about it till we shut the windows. So I hope I explained that properly, but
Oh, you did.
basically autoimmune disorder, autoimmune disease is the autoimmune system is compromised, and it can no longer unwind these oxidative bursts properly, and the remnants of it are the foundation or the start to fire of inflammation. Inflammation is body inflamed, body on fire.
And isn't it so sad that people are not aware of such a simple resolution to their problem because they go to the doctor and they're given prescription after prescription that treat all these symptoms when grounding would just be so much easier.
And to a large degree, a lot of people would, their lives would be much better if they could live grounded. The problem is, it's how do I say it? We created this, but we didn't recognize that there was a problem when
Right.
we disconnected or insulated ourselves from the earth. But a lot of people are going to experience a lot of pain along the way, primarily because they do not understand. No one ever taught them.
What is the minimal amount of time that someone should try and get bare feet on the ground?
That's the number one question that I'm always asked. And what I tell, first of all, any amount of grounding is good.
Uh-huh.
More grounding is better. But if you have pain in your body, because grounding is a preventative measure,
Uh-huh.
grounding prevents inflammation. But if you have inflammation, you have pain in your body, then the thing I always tell everybody, I don't care what it is, whether it's extreme, your health is extremely compromised, or you just stubbed a toe, get grounded and stay grounded until the pain stops.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As soon as the pain stops, then the fire's out. And then when the pain comes back up, that means the fire is kicking back up. You have to get grounded again and stay grounded until the fire goes down. And there's a benefit to cumulative grounding. The more you ground, the better it is, because it has cumulative effects. Meaning that if you put the fire out for a while, then the immune system can go to work and fix up some of the damage that was the inflammation created. Then the inflammation comes back up, so it can't do that anymore. But as soon as you get grounded again, then so the immune system gets to work on restoring your health a little bit at a time. And which hardly today anybody can get grounded and stay grounded.
Well, you've invented some products though that help with that, correct?
Yes, what we did is those products were all accidental products. When we were doing our research, and we're over 30 published studies now,
Oh,
and
okay.
but when we were doing our research, we had to create ways to ground people so we could, monitor the biological effects. And some of them we would ground for a half hour, some of them for an hour, and some we would ground for overnight, some of them we would ground for weeks or months. And in doing this, the first thing we did is we just created an electrode patch, EKG patch, put it on the hand, then connect a coil cord to it, and then connect it to the ground in an electrical outlet. The ground in an electrical outlet goes to a wire that's connected to a ground rod driven into the earth somewhere near the foundation of your home.
Uh,
So we use that same ground because it's just going to the earth. So when you connect a person's body to the patch and then the wire to the patch and then the wire to the ground outlet, then electrons can flow from the earth up the wire, through the patch, throughout the body, and that reduces, I mean, the body will equalize with the earth. And in the process, the pain goes away. I don't care who you are. I don't care what kind of pain you've got. I mean, you can't have this inflammatory chronic pain in your body when you're grounded. So anyhow, was the first one, and that's where we learned most of all that you ground the body no matter what, 5-10 minutes. I mean, it's life-changing. That's not enough, but that's enough for you to recognize that it's affecting your pain and it's calming your nervous system. You're relaxing and your respiration changes, your O2 saturation comes up. All of these things change. The body is different when it's grounded than when it's not grounded. And to do better study, because you couldn't keep a patch on people and a cord all day long.
right.
So then we had to make mats. Some of them were 2 feet long by 1 foot wide, connect them to a ground wire, a ground cord, and then to put them on the floor, put their feet on it, let them sit on it, and oftentimes in the early days, let them sleep on them to monitor sleep results. Then as time went on, we started creating bigger ground planes, meaning, well, one day because all of the subjects and everybody kept, well, can we have these? Can we keep the ones we used? Do you have any extra? I need one for my mom. I heard that so many times, and so, and we didn't, but we let them keep the ones they had. So one day we sat down and we asked ourselves, because there's such a demand now for people wanting to be grounded and wanting to ground their family, their parents primarily, that we said, what's the one thing we could do for people that would work? Because most people won't comply with medical treatments. They'll do it for a while, a day, a week, or whatever, but then they fall away. And it's important that they get grounded, stay grounded. So I said, what's the number one thing we can do to help these people? And we said, well, probably the best thing to do is give them something to sleep on, because they can put it on the bed one time, plug it in, and then all they have to do is what they do every night: get in bed and go to sleep. And then the earth can restore and repair the body during sleep. And that's the primary time when the body heals and repairs itself, restores itself. Anyway, so that was our decision. That's why we made bed pads, mattress covers, bed pads, conductive sheets, all these things. And we did create those products. We have sold literally millions of them. And it's what we love about the business. What I love about the business, if I had to go sell products or go sell devices, I would hang up and walk away, because that's not anything I would care to do. So my whole concept through this was people have to come and want it. This has to be something that sells itself. I don't want to be involved with selling things or
Right.
marketing things. I want to be on purpose. I want to be able to provide something that is, because I was in my late 50s, 60s going in there. And I wanted to make my life, my time beneficial. Wasn't really interested in making a buck as much as I was doing something that I felt good about doing. And I loved this because it was something that I don't care what you were suffering from, you can get grounded. It's going to put the fire out. It's going to reduce the pain. And then your immune system can go back to work, restoring your health. And that's what was so important to me is I grew up on a ranch and taking care of animals and so on. And I didn't know too much, except that if you keep pasture clean and pristine, cows will be healthy. And if you don't, you let noxious weeds grow, or you let
Yeah.
things happen, the cattle get sick.
Yeah.
And so it was about health. Everything was health. But what I learned most of all, health is natural. If you keep the pasture clean and pristine, those cows are going to be healthy and they're going to be happy. And but then I intuitively knew that the immune system in the human body, health is our most natural state.
Right.
If you do not have health, then you're doing something that's interfering with your immune system's ability to maintain health, because it only knows to do one thing every day, all day long: maintain and restore health. That's what sleep is about, restoring health.
Right.
So, and what we learned is that what you're doing, or what people are doing, is wearing rubber sole shoes.
Oh, yeah. And
Yeah.
I've seen when all your products are on your website, which is, but tell us your website.
It's earthing.com.
So everything's available on there. But I've also seen them advertised on Amazon.
Yeah,
And
there's hundreds of knockoffs from China now
oh,
on Amazon.
okay, so that's so be wary then. I also looked and saw that different kinds of shoes were being promoted as earthing shoes.
I kind of started that whole concept.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
One of the first things I did was, I thought, well, the first thing you got to do is ground shoes so people can be grounded when they're walking around. The problem was that there's 10,000 styles and
Right.
hundreds of sizes. And I said, that's nonsense. So I ended up I said, what's the most basic shoe that everybody owns a pair of in the world? And it's flip-flops.
Uh-huh.
So I took a simple pair of flip-flops and I put a mechanism on them when they were being manufactured that had a ground strap on them. So it's grounded. So when you put the shoe on, your foot is touching the bottom of the shoe and it's touching the earth, and it's conductive. So you're grounded to the earth when you're walking. We do have a new one coming out that's more like a Birkenstock, open toe, kind of with straps, because it's a quality shoe and it's very inexpensive. And we probably only have one color, black, something that most everybody will wear. But the concept is, I don't want to get into the shoe industry and compete
Right.
with the shoe.
Right.
All I want to do is teach people that it's important that we ground our shoes, especially of our children and anybody whose health is compromised. We need to get them grounded. We need to get that charge out of the body. The products that we have, they're made of carbon. They'll last for years. So what we've done the last 15 years is developed a handful of products that are what we call bulletproof, meaning they're going to work no matter what. And that's what people need. They need to be able to know that it's working.
What
Now,
about just plain leather bottom shoes, or for that matter, the Birkenstocks you mentioned that have cork and natural materials?
the cork is not conductive.
Oh, okay.
The leather, the shoes back in the 50s and before, leather shoes, those were all conductive because your body would perspire, you would
Uh-huh.
sweat, and then your shoes would absorb the body salts and the
Okay.
moisture. And so leather shoes were always semi-conductive. And so they were good. What happened to leather soled shoes is in the 50s and thereabouts, they started putting the plastic inserts,
Uh-huh.
little plastic liners. And so again, even though you've got leather soled shoes, you got to remove the plastic liners.
Awesome. Now, on your website, I read a really interesting story, which I'd like you to recount about the Native American grandfather that dug the hole for his granddaughter.
I lived in Billings, Montana area, and we had the Crow Indian tribe and the Cheyenne Indian tribe, and I spent a lot of time in those areas. Anyhow, a lot of my friends were Native Americans, so I would end up playing, and I was Custer. I've been killed 100 times, because I was white. And so we play cowboys and Indians, cavalry and Indians. We would do all kinds of things. One night I was got off the school bus and on the reservation and with one of my friends, and we went to his home, and his sister, young girl, had scarlet fever. They had taken her to the doctors and done what they could with conventional medicine, and they said there was nothing they could do, which was often the case back in those days. That evening, I remember that they dug a little pit in the ground, about so long, and they put a little bit of straw in it, and they laid the little girl in the ground, and she had high fever and all those kind of things. But anyhow, the grandfather built a fire, a few feet away, and he just sat there for days, a couple of days, just with the girl, and didn't really know what to think of it. But a couple of days later, here's this little girl up running around like nothing had ever happened.
Wow.
And scarlet fever was pretty, a lot of people did not survive scarlet fever.
Right.
But the concept is they buried people in the earth or put them in enough, so they were grounded. I don't know if they knew what they were doing. Obviously, they knew that it worked, but
Right.
they didn't know the science or anything. But then, when we wrote the Earthing book, then we found out there were hundreds of cultures around the world. That's a normal practice when people are sick, to bury their bodies or bury their feet. If you have arthritis and so on, bury your feet in the earth. I actually observed it, but yeah, it was profound. But I knew nothing of grounding then. I just thought it was odd.
Yeah.
But I do remember same people, I believe those were Cheyenne. We went into one of the teepees one night, and one of the moms told us, take your shoes off, they'll make you sick. And I didn't think anything about it because, my mom didn't want us to have shoes in the house either. But I'd never heard that term, they'll make you sick. And that kind of stuck with me forever. And once I got involved in the grounding and biological grounding, it came back to me. They knew they felt better when they were grounded. They knew they felt better when they had their feet on the earth. And there's a lot of discussion about how the old people used to bury their feet in the earth because the earth has healing effects. And it's like earthing, I don't like to take credit for discovering it. I didn't discover it. It was there. We just forgot about it. And I was fortunate to be retired at the time and made an observation to keep me busy for the next 25 years.
And I'm so glad that you did, because definitely we need it here. It was a study about seniors living in high-rise buildings. Can you
Yes.
tell us about that?
Yeah, there are several studies in Europe, and I think there's one at the University of Iowa. I don't know if that's on the earthinginstitute.net. It may be. We do have the earthinginstitute.net, which you can go and look at all the studies. There's around 30 some studies and another 20 papers that have been published on earthing. The high rises, what we found was that there's a 50% increase in strokes in people who live above the earth. I mean, who live in second story or above, second story bedrooms and high rises. Because the further you get away from the earth, the atmosphere is one voltage, the earth is another voltage. So as soon as you get away, it changes the electrical polarities of the body and everything. I don't talk a lot about things like that too much, because a lot of people, they can't do much. You can't just leave your home. You can't do. The thing you can do is you can get grounded.
Right.
And that was the most important thing I learned from some people at the National Health Institute and the California Health Services, was that a lot of people understood what we were doing and what, the effects of it, because they were watching us as we were doing the research. But I remember one of the gals told me one day, she says, before you go out and start killing the people, about these things. You need to have a no-cost solution, and you need to have a low-cost solution. I ended up, it was very simple. The low-cost solution, take your shoes off and stand on the earth. It's absolutely free. And do it where you can get some sunshine, because you need vitamin D now. And we put
Right.
roofs over our head and we don't get our vitamin D anymore either. And then the low-cost solution is, for $100 or whatever they are now, you can get a mat to sleep on, or a patch kit to put on acute injuries and where your health is acutely compromised.
Uh-huh.
So we've kept everything very affordable. Probably 99% of our business is female. And the average person who finds grounding is a mom that's 30 to 55. The first thing she does when she understands it, experiences it, she doesn't need to know a whole lot about why it works, but she experiences it and the pain goes away. The first thing she does is give the one she has to her mom, because in her mind, her mom needs it more than she does. And then next month, when she has some disposable income, she'll buy another one, use it for a while, and then give it to a sister or a girlfriend or some other family member, and then buy another. But the average mom will buy half a dozen of these products first year,
Wow.
not for herself,
Right.
for family and close friends. And so that's the beauty of it, because they don't need to explain it. All they need to do is experience it.
Right.
And if the pain goes away, give me two. I want one from my mom and one from me. And that's the end of the story.
I
I mean,
wish I would have had it for my mother.
we've always made sure everything was safe. Second, effective. Three, affordable.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I would love to have you on again at another time, because I anticipate there's going to be a lot of people wanting to learn more.
Yeah. Well, that's what I do all day long is try, podcast and visit with people, sometimes a half a dozen, and sometimes as many as 1,000, it doesn't matter. But that's getting the message out there and sharing everything I know and everything we've learned. And then getting people to share it with the people that they know who need it most.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate your time. Awesome. You are wonderful to have on the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste. Bye.
Namaste.